Guys, welcome. Today we are here in my old college of PCC with someone who had a meaningful impact in my life. Dr. Gray Lowhorn is an associate professor and lead faculty for the MBA program in Pensacola Christian College and has done this for over 2
Mhm.
decades, teaching business and economics. He was actually one of my professors back in the early 2000s. So it is a privilege to be able to sit with him now, over 20 years later, and talk about life, so many good things. So thank you, Dr. Lowhorn, for being here.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me on your podcast. Doesn't seem like 20 years.
It does not sit.
Time flies. Uh, Back when I first came here to teach, of course, I would have had no idea that I'd, be doing that for 20 years, but it's been a blessing. Absolutely love it here. So it's been a good thing.
That's awesome. Dr. Lowhorn, tell us who you are, your background, what got you here, what led you to teach economics in PCC.
Okay. Yeah. Started out, my career was in healthcare. And so right out of college, actually, I changed my major 3 times. So I squeezed my 4-year degree into 6.
Oh, wow.
So ended up with a health degree, but kind of concentrations in healthcare administration and economics, and then later did graduate work in economics. But yeah, for the first little over a decade, I was on the business side of healthcare. So I was an administrator for a couple of different facilities. And at some point, and I don't know, it may sound hokey to some people, but I just felt like the Lord was calling me to some kind of full-time service, full-time Christian service, but not a pulpit ministry or a church ministry per se,
Okay.
but Christian education. And at the time, our children, I have 2 children, and they were in first and second grade, and the school they were going to use the Abeka curriculum. So I was looking on the Abeka curriculum one day, and it said, copyright Pensacola Christian College. I thought, I've never heard of that school. So I started, checking into it. And a couple of years later, here we were.
Wow.
And so we came down to Florida. I, resigned my position there. We lived in Kentucky at the time. And, but yeah, it's been a tremendous blessing. So our kids were able to grow up here, go through the school, and we've really enjoyed it. So with teaching, I think it's helpful. And this is true of pretty much all of our business faculty. We all have careers before teaching. So I think that helps out. And being able to relate some of those experiences while I'm teaching, not only economics, but sometimes I'll teach some other subjects such as human resource management, and kind of gives me a little bit different perspective, and hopefully able to communicate that with the students. And our students do very well. They hire well, they promote well. So I'm very pleased with that.
You spent a long time teaching economics and business to students. From your perspective, what are some of the most important economic principles people misunderstand, especially when it comes to everyday life and decision making?
That's a good question. Probably the thing that I see most people struggle with is it's a concept called opportunity cost. I don't know if you remember that kind of thing.
I remember that.
So every time we choose something, every time I choose to do one thing, I'm necessarily not choosing to do other things. And most people don't really evaluate what the value is of what they choose to do, but also more importantly, what they're choosing not to do. And a lot of times we make less than optimal decisions. Let's say, I won't say bad decisions maybe, but yeah, sometimes we make bad decisions because we don't realize what we either could have had or what we're giving up to do what we're doing. So I would say that's probably the number one thing. And then just financial literacy in general. I think that's getting to be more and more of a lost art. And in a social media world, it's really difficult. We tend to want to buy experiences instead of value. And value comes back around to opportunity cost as well.
I'm a reminder that our parents told us that you see these things, but it took us 20 years.
Right.
You just got out of college. You can't just jump in and have all these things. A shift, in mind.
Sometimes I would tell my kids when they would get impatient, I would say, something along that line. It takes a lifetime to build a life. So don't rush through it.
Exactly.
Enjoy it while you're doing it, but also don't just think about short term. Think about long term. Plan for the future as well. Sometimes things are so appealing now, but 2, 3, 5, 10 years down the road, and it's hard to see those things because they're so distant in the future, and they're not certain. But a lot of times you can see patterns. with other people or just patterns of behavior. And just a thoughtful approach to life, I guess, would be helpful from an economic point of view.
Yeah, it is tough. I remember one of our teachers will say, "You could go and get a BMW, but then you have to insurance. Can you really do that?"
I was talking to a guy that I go to church with a few nights ago, and he was talking about a friend of his that had just bought a new truck. I think it's like about $60,000.
Phew.
And his friend told him, "You need to buy one too." And he said, "But my car's paid off.
Yeah.
I don't need a $60,000 truck."
Yeah.
And he said, "We're both going to go to work, park in the same parking lot, do the same job, get in our car and go home.
Mhm.
We're going to get from point A to point B. The
Mhm.
only difference is yours is costing you about $700 a month and
Yeah.
mine isn't."
Right.
And just think, what else could I do with that $700?
Right.
And most people think, oh, I could spend it on something, but you could also invest it.
Yes.
So it really is kind of a mindset thing.
Yes.
You have to have a mindset shift to not only just toward being frugal, but again, thinking about value.
Actually, mindset. You talked about that between the consumer and the investor mindset.
Yeah, yeah.
So, how does someone begin making that shift, especially in a culture that constantly encourages spending?
Well, we do live in a consumerist culture, that is for sure. I think just having, having a perspective of the future, as you know, when you have kids,
Yeah,
that changes your outlook on
for
everything.
sure.
Or when somebody gets married or they're in a relationship, and your perspective changes, and you start thinking about long term. You start thinking about the future. A lot of times, people think money is the goal, and I think that's where we're at in society today. But
Hmm.
money's not the goal.
Right.
Money is just a tool.
Hmm.
It actually doesn't depend on how much you make. I mean, the return's going to be graduated based on the amount, but it's not about how much money you make, it's what you do with it. Let me just give you an example on the car, and just thinking about this from a mindset thing. If I have cash, so if I was a Dave Ramsey disciple there and I had cash, I could go buy a car.
Hmm.
Maybe not a $60,000 truck, maybe $45,000, something like that. And I could go pay the cash, or I could finance it and pay a down payment. And that's a depreciating asset. So my money's gone at the end of the day. Or I could take the money that I have, I could invest it. I could use that investment income to make a payment on the new car.
Yeah.
So I'd still buy the same car,
Yes.
but instead of using my cash as a down payment, I'd use my cash as an investment.
Right.
So it's just about, what else can I do?
Yeah.
What other opportunities do I have?
Yeah.
And then you invest the money, you use that income. Now, it wouldn't pay your whole car payment probably, but
But
it'd pay a portion of it.
yeah.
And you're saving that out of your current income.
Right.
And then when you get the car paid off, you still have the investment, and it's kicking off cash in perpetuity,
Yes.
and it's going to keep returning. Yeah. Or you could let it grow
Yes.
and buy your next car that way.
That's
And
right.
so you could buy an asset, produce income with it, and let
Hmm.
that pay off your car.
For sure.
So at the end, you still have your seed money.
Yes.
The mindset is value getting. It's just a tool to do what I can. Really, it's almost like a stewardship model.
Hmm.
God's given me certain things. He expects me to handle it well.
Hmm.
Like the parables of the talents.
Yes.
And the slothful servant who hid his talent in the ground, he was rebuked. So we don't just need to hide it in the ground, so to speak, or spend it. He would have really been in bad shape if he had spent the master's money. I think what we can do to give a return to the Lord.
Yes.
The better I do financially, the more I can give to the Lord's work.
That's right.
The better I do financially, I can do for my family. So
Absolutely.
it's just, I guess, that encouragement to think, how can I manage it best?
Hmm.
How can I manage this tool the best way
Hmm.
to get the most value?
Now, with thinking about investment, there's that tendency that people have to overanalyze
Oh,
and delay action. So, from your experience, why do people hesitate so much to start, whether that's investing or starting a business or creating additional income? Like, there's a fine line
yeah,
between overanalyzing and doing something.
right. I think it comes down to fear,
Mm.
either fear of failure or fear that I won't know enough. So
Mm.
we want to accumulate more knowledge, and we can't really get experience unless we do it. But that can be a fearful thing. Oh, I've never done this before. I don't
Right.
know enough about it. And that used to hold me back. was probably my number one hesitancy was I had just had that fear of doing something.
Mhm.
And then there came a time where I guess I just told myself, if I'm going to do it, I'm just going to have to do it.
Mm.
so,
Yes.
so I
Yes.
jumped in there. Like my first, I mean, I've always done like mutual funds and stocks and things like that.
Mhm.
But my first non-financial investment was a real estate property.
Mm.
And it took me about a year and a half before I actually pulled the trigger, so to speak, and bought something.
Mhm.
And I just had a little bit of money just for a down payment and
Mhm.
closing cost. And I thought, if I don't ever do it, I'm never going to do it.
That's right.
So I just did it.
Mm.
And the interesting thing, everyone that I knew that I told about doing it, and this might be another thing with the
Mhm.
fear of acceptance or non acceptance.
Uh,
Everyone that I talked to about it said it was a bad idea. You don't know anything about it. It won't be successful. What are you
huh.
going to do if you have a vacancy and then you're going to have two mortgages and on and on and on. But the only person that did not tell me that I couldn't do it or shouldn't do it was my wife.
Mm.
And she said, "Oh, you'll figure it out. I trust you."
Wow.
That was all I needed to hear. To me, that was liberating. But
Yeah.
literally everyone else I knew, colleagues, friends, people at church, everywhere, like, "Oh, that's crazy. What are you thinking about?" I thought, well, what have I got to lose? And my wife thinks I can do it. So I'll do
Yeah.
it. And it turned out to be very successful. We owned that property for a little over 10 years. And, it cash flowed well.
Mm.
And then we kind of reorganized our portfolio in the end. And so we ended up selling that property. And well, it's not all about the money, but you do want a return on investment.
Yeah.
And we did very, very well with that property. So not only the cash flow, but just accumulating the equity. So that taught me that sometimes you just have to jump in and do it.
Yes.
And if it doesn't work, it's not the end of the world. So I see people, like sometimes we'll have students that they come to us and they've delayed coming to school for a year or two.
Mm.
And they have a good idea of what they want to do and what they want to accomplish, but it's the fear of moving away from home.
Right.
In some cases, like your own situation, moving away to another country,
Yes. Yeah.
studying in a place where English is not your first
Oh,
language,
yeah.
for so many people. And we have a lot of international students here, which I really love working with international students. They're absolutely amazing. And I mean, to be able to not just move away from home, but move away from your country, move away from your culture,
Yes.
study in another language
Oh, yeah.
and be successful at the collegiate level. I mean, it just blows my mind. It's amazing. I have
Yeah.
tremendous respect for you and all the students that I've had, but fear is the limiting factor in most cases, I
Yes.
think. And if you just and I don't know what prompted you to do it, but when you jump in there and do it and you say, "Well, it's not so bad."
Right.
And then you start having success and you're like, "Well, I'm ready for the next thing." So a lot of life just comes down to doing it.
Yes.
Just, get up the courage and just take that first step.
I sense passion there, Dr. Lowhorn.
Yeah, yeah,
So, looking ahead, what topics or ideas are really energizing for you? Whether it's financial literacy, investment, extra income
yeah.
streams, or helping people rethink their relationship with money. What is energizing you these days?
Probably overall, just the concept of financial literacy. I run into so many people, and not only do I teach these things, but sometimes I'll either students here or friends that I have, they'll come up and say, they'll ask me some questions or tell me some of their doubts or concerns. And sometimes if it's a younger person, I'll say, "Well, what did your parents say about this?" Or "What did your parents do?" And they're like, "Oh, my parents don't know anything about money. That's why I'm asking you."
Mm.
And on one level, you hear people say, they ought to teach that in school.
Hmm.
And,
Yeah.
and maybe we should. Well, I mean, I do, but on a broader context,
Right.
maybe we should. But I would say we need to teach that at home as well.
Yes.
But I know a lot of people don't have a home situation that's conducive to that, and
Mhm.
either their parents weren't good with money, or they have a broken home, or I mean, just so many other factors.
Yeah.
So I know everyone doesn't have access to that. But for those who do, for parents, that's part of training your children
Yes.
and training them in stewardship,
Mhm.
training them to be responsible with the things that God's given them. But Along with that comes a great responsibility because they have to model what they're trying to teach their
Yes.
children.
Yes.
Well, you know how it is with kids. You can't tell your kids one thing and then do another.
Yeah. Stuff.
You
But
can't say, "Hey, we ought to go to church," and then you're skipping church all the time or whatever. It
right.
just doesn't work.
Right.
So, if you're trying to teach your kids financial responsibility, you have to live it yourself.
That's right.
Stop that impulse buying.
Hmm.
Think of alternative ways to finance things.
Yes.
Classic decisions like rent versus buy. Should I rent a house? Should I buy a house?
Hmm.
It depends on your situation, but if parents would think that through with their kids and help their kids learn, that would be great. And then we could supplement that with
Oh,
education
for sure.
in our schools. But
Yes.
yeah, and I think we should teach that more because if we don't, we usually just default to sort of a laissez-faire, just a casual attitude toward not only money, but just everything.
Yeah.
And we end up making some bad decisions on occasion. I've made a few. Well, I've made more than a few.
We all have.
So a
Yeah.
lot of what I learned through the School of Hard Knocks. But hopefully, we can minimize that a little bit. So I'm passionate about financial literacy, and then the other thing is I've always been this way to a degree, but a sense of stewardship or a sense of faith.
Yes.
And faith is not something you do on Sunday. It really informs how you live, what you do,
Yeah.
and it's not just the movies you watch or the music you listen to. It goes way beyond that. The thing for me is, do people really have an honest, sincere relationship with the Lord? And now that transcends money, but if you have that relationship with
Yeah.
the Lord, it'll affect the way you think about money because you
Absolutely.
start thinking about giving, you start thinking about investing in spiritual things, missions trips, mission support,
Yeah.
things like that,
Mhm.
church involvement. It's not a list of rules. It's not just something you do. It's not a box to check. It's literally a life
Mhm.
and a lifestyle.
Mhm.
So I'm pretty excited about that, and that just something I think about every day. But yeah, financial literacy, probably a faith connection.
Yes, for sure.
Those two things.
So, Dr. Lowhorn, before we close, one final question. You get to see students come in, you get students see come out into the marketplace.
Hmm.
You get to see both ways. Like here we are 20 years later, and
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
so honored. What is one thing you hope and wish that these people you come in touch with would know about life, about meaningful living? Any advice you wish that they will carry through?
Yeah, probably purposeful decision making.
Yes.
Really think about what you're doing, why you're doing it, and and our students here, they do very, very well with that.
Hmm.
I'm very, very proud of them in that sense.
Hmm.
So yeah, just you don't have to go around so serious minded all the time, but just think about the import, of
Hmm.
what we're doing, what we're saying, where we're going, things like that.
Yeah.
And so I try to communicate that and just good, rational, faith-based decision making. One thing that we really do here is we promote the biblical worldview, and a lot of people talk about it, but at some point you have to internalize that, make it
Yeah.
personal.
Yes.
And the faith life is the best life.
That's a good
And
slogan.
right, right. I need to tweet that out later, but it is true. It is
Yeah.
true, and so that's something I really enjoy about being able to teach is I can teach not only the subject matter, but teach those life lessons. When I first came here to teach, they recommended a book for us to read, and it's been so long ago I can't remember the author, but basically it's teaching from a kingdom viewpoint.
Mm.
And it said a lot of times people will ask a teacher, "What do you teach?" And they'll name the subject. "Oh, I teach economics," or "I teach literature," or whatever.
Mhm.
And the author of the book said, "No, you teach students." And that was game changing for me
Mm.
because when I first came here, I thought, I'm going to teach business.
Mhm.
And I realized I'm not really going to teach business, I'm teaching students.
Mm.
And so these 20 plus years later, that still has such an impression on me.
Mm.
And everyone that we come into contact with every day,
Yeah.
we're doing the same thing. You're teaching your children. I'm teaching my children and grandchildren. And I don't know, it focuses, it puts a little bit different angle on it.
It focuses, but it also expands. When you're teaching students, today you could be talking about financial literacy, tomorrow
Hmm.
you could be talking about decision making, but it's
Right.
still your role as in business, but you're teaching life,
Right,
you
right.
know? That's a great point. Thank you so
It's
much
it's
for
so good to see. You were able to stop in a couple of years ago, and it was good to see you then.
yeah,
Great to see you now, and appreciate you coming back and having me on your show.
thank you so much. Bye for
Absolutely.